So, good afternoon. Again, welcome to this afternoon's Mobilityways webinar. My name is Mark Hand. I'm the Group Business Development Director for Mobilityways. 2 weeks ago, we ran ZC3, at which nearly 700 delegates and speakers engaged in the sharing of challenges and ideas around decarbonising the commute. The feedback was extremely positive, many describing the event as inspirational. Today, the focus is on action and on the implementation of a package of measures to achieve zero carbon commuting. But first, a reminder of who we are. Mobilityways is a mission-driven social enterprise committed to supporting government at all levels and other large employers to help deliver zero carbon commuting in the UK as a minimum by 2040 at the latest. We've been working in this sector for 25 years. Next slide, please. Today, a team of speakers are going to take you through the tools and services that we have available at a level of detail which is appropriate to a 60-minute webinar. We have a three-phased approach in terms of tackling zero commute emissions and helping organisations to get down to zero carbon commuting. And as you can see on the screen, that includes the measurement, the reduction and the reporting on commute emissions. And at a high level, when we're talking about measurement, we're talking about travel surveys, so understanding employee behaviour and gaining some insights into reasons why they may not be travelling in a more sustainable mode and what some of those barriers might be and the incentives that could help overcome them. It's also about understanding what the impact of that behaviour is from a commute emissions perspective. So it's the ability to convert that data into that sort of understanding. And it's also about what we call scoping smart mobility. So understanding the options that staff actually already have for the commute, where gaps in provision are. So where we've got large clusters of employees who currently have no choice other than to get into a petrol or diesel car and travel alone to site. And also an understanding of what the impact of change might be, not just in terms of climate change, CO2e, nitrogen, PM10, but also about financial savings for the business, financial savings for staff, and health and well-being metrics as well. So the measurement phase is really important. It provides the foundation towards the next bit, which is the reduction phase, in terms of creating that strategy, that roadmap towards zero carbon commuting. And then putting in play interventions, again, based on the data that can help drive down those emissions. And finally, really importantly, of course, is reporting on the impact of all of that and understanding whether the campaigns that we're running, the investments we're making, are actually making a difference. I'm sure that questions will arise throughout today's presentation. Please do put them in the chat, and we will come back to you afterwards with considered responses, as opposed to just giving you some off-the-cuff answers during the actual webinar. Finally, please remember that everything we're going to talk about today, of course, applies to single employment sites, but can be equally as important for clusters of organisations, business parks, corridors, and even regions, because we can tackle that through aggregated data and interventions. So why do commute emissions actually matter? If we could go on to the next slide, please. Now, we're actually in the middle of COP27, and once again, the messages coming out of this particular conference are strong and concerning. The planet is sending a distress signal, and all the polls suggest that individuals are wanting to do something about this, while separate polls are showing they don't quite know what to do. The commute provides a unique, almost unique opportunity, really, for organisations to engage their employees in making a difference, in something they have control over, which is how they travel to and from work. In a sense, organisations have the opportunity to help their employees, to help the organisations to deliver on their own climate commitments and targets. Next slide, please. It's also really important in terms of focusing on the commute to recognise that 18 billion kilos of CO2e are generated annually from the commute. That's 5% of all of UK's emissions. Now, the government recognised in its decarbonisation of transport plan last year that we need to address our commute emissions or we're going to fail to meet our net zero goals in the UK. Next slide, please. So the good news is that whilst you're focusing on sustainability and reducing commute emissions, there are many operational benefits that spin off from that activity. So supporting staff with the cost of living crisis by helping them to reduce their costs of commute, enhancing recruitment and retention. So much of the battle to get people to site at the moment is around affordability of transport. That's a major barrier. And there are many organisations that we're helping already up and down the country to enhance access to site and recruitment opportunity. Reducing demand on car parks, reducing the need for leasing additional spaces, or maybe putting the parking asset, the car park, to much better and effective use than just having cars sat in it all day. Reducing local congestion, improving air quality, and supporting health and wellbeing objectives are all part of the component parts that come alongside sustainable commuting. Next slide, please. So when we spoke to organisations about why they hadn't necessarily focused on the commute so far and commute emissions, the first response that we were aware of already was around the fact it wasn't statutory. But the other three themes that came through were of particular interest. So these were the barriers to actually focusing on commute emissions. One, that there was no easy way to measure the team's emissions. Secondly, how difficult it is to affect behaviour change across a large workforce. And we heard that loud and clear through ZC3 a couple of weeks ago. And also the ability to prove the impact that's being made by the investments of time and effort and resource into making this change. So what we sought to do was pull those things together into a single response. And that was, if we can go to the next slide, please, the Mobilityways solution. And Mobilityways is three things. It is a brand, it is a framework to help organizations understand their starting position, create a roadmap to zero carbon commuting, understanding the actions and the milestones required, all based on data. It's also a dashboard in which every component part of this, everything to do with commute emissions, is contained in one place. So what I want to do now is move on to my colleague Stacey Anderson, who is a senior account manager, and she's going to take you through in more detail the measurement phase.
Thanks, Mark, and good afternoon, everyone, and thanks again for joining us. Before I get started, just another quick reminder regarding comments and questions. Feel free to pop them across in the relevant areas and we'll get back to you. So measuring is the first step on the zero carbon commuting journey with Mobilityways. We understand the importance of arming organisations with relevant and powerful commuter insights before implementing solutions. The data Mobilityways provides informs the organisation's decision-making, helps them to develop strategies, and to strengthen partnerships of which will positively impact their journey to zero carbon commuting. We do this via three key measuring tools: travel surveys, ACEL, and scoping. Next slide, please. Travel surveys enables the organisation to delve deeper into the current commuting patterns, behaviours, and motivations of the workforce. Mobilityways enables organisations to conduct fully customised surveys in an efficient manner, with the full analysis and reports stored within the dashboard, keeping your data all in one place. A key output of the Mobilityways travel survey is the average commuter emissions level, also known as the ACEL. So I'm just going to start sharing my screen and hopefully you'll be able to see the Mobilityways dashboard. Hopefully that has worked. Excellent stuff. Okay, so as you can see, we're within the Mobilityways dashboard. And this is showing you the ACEL. And what we're wanting to do is we wanted to use a visualization that was instantly known to all. So what this is telling you is this organisation is currently at 904 kilograms of CO2e per commuter per annum, and that's what they're emitting. This organisation has a 2030 target for zero carbon commuting, So this also shows them at what point they need to be at the halfway mark. So by 2026, this organisation needs to be hitting a 452 kilograms of CO2e per commuter per annum to remain on track. Mobilityways will also give the total commuter emissions for that organisation and a full breakdown per mode. What I also want to just show you is, and this kind of brings in the next element of the measure phase of scoping, is the opportunity within the workforce to commute sustainably. So if we were to click our fingers today for everybody to commute sustainably tomorrow, what would that look like? So when we put that opportunity in a simulated A cell, it then gives us the opportunity for growth per mode. And this is a really significant story to be telling your senior stakeholders around where can we influence change and how, well, I guess what the priorities are. So when we're looking at this example, we understand that there's a huge increase or opportunity for growth in active travel and also shared mobility. But what was also really pleasing is a drastic reduction in driving alone that we could make. So when we start to put this into a context of reducing commuter emissions, purely based on changing people's behaviours and increasing occupancy levels, whether that's in a car, a bus or a train, an organisation can significantly reduce their commuter emissions. And it's what the Mobilityways data can provide just to show you on that roadmap to where to prioritise focus, energy and resource to ensure that you stay on track. Now, I touched very gently on the scoping analysis, and scoping forms the last section of the measurement phase. And I just wanted to bring your attention, first of all, the reports that we deliver. It's very comprehensive. And I just want to kind of just briefly show you a few parts of the scoping analysis report before going into the actual mapping elements. So as I said, the scoping analysis gives you the opportunity. So think of it as the art of the possible. It also helps to inform decision-making at a high strategic level, changing policies and improving infrastructure, as well as at operational levels. So understanding who can park, who doesn't need to park, but also any interventions or new solutions can be introduced. Or perhaps if you're looking from a wider scale of, if we were to really embed sustainable commuting in our culture and reward everybody, at what scale would that be? So the analysis really ultimately shows you who needs to be driving and who doesn't. So this really does help. And then also what it does is it also forecasts the environmental savings of the organisation, the cost savings both to the organisation and the employee, as well as the active travel benefits as well. So this is really fundamental for then engaging other departments within the organisation. So we start to embed sustainable commuting into the culture of the organisation. Going back into the dashboard, what I'm just now going to show you is the map of scoping. So what is slowly appearing onto your screen is a number of dots. So these dots would represent anonymized postcodes. And the pin on your map is the destination. We are currently showing you the public transport view, but you'll notice that we have a lift share view and an active travel view. But for now, what we're going to be doing is just staying on the public transport view for you. Now, there are a couple of factors that take into consideration in all of the toggles that I've just shown you. With public transport, we have a driving factor. So we're currently looking at it at double the drive time. So anything that is showing as green has a viable public transport option that is within double the driving time. Anything that is appearing as amber is just outside of the double the driving time, and anything that is showing in red does not have a feasible option available to them. So why is this beneficial for an organisation? Well, first, it looks at the viability of public transport, but also it helps you understand who the biggest players are when they're looking to increase or understanding your patronage of your staff. So what we also included in the scoping analysis for organisations is a service operators. And this will highlight all of the operators that service your staff to come to site. Now, what I want you to focus on is the Stagecoach East Scotland for now. And remember that we're on a ×2. If I change that to ×3, so this will take them 3 times driving on a bus, you will notice that it significantly changes to 992 having an option. That is ×3 their driving duration. Now, the benefit for this for the organisation is ultimately, one, you can have those meaningful conversations with your operator that holds the biggest market, first of all, but also enables you to challenge the ability for them to increase their service to be able to open up the pool of audience. And you'll be able to show them this on the map to understand where it is feasible to open up those corridors. Another element to the public transport is identifying gaps in infrastructure that where traditional infrastructure may not be able to be influenced. So you can then start to look at more demand responsive transport and opening up clusters of areas where it's not feasible for them to actually get on to a public transport network. This then brings me quite nicely onto lift share. Lift share being an option that is flexible, convenient, but also is open to the majority of people in a workforce. And this is shown by, again, the array of coloured dots. So I'll just walk you through them. We have the grey dots that show 0 potential matches. Now, this is because no one is, or another postcode is not within a mile of that postcode. Therefore, there's no potential matches. However, if you're signed up to a lift share community, we know that the algorithm is smart enough to pick up people en route. And you can see there's a multiple number of people. The red dots show between 1 and 3 options, the amber between 4 and 9, and your greens are between 10 or more lift share options available. And the closer you get to the destination, the more potential matches you have. Now, why is this really beneficial? It gives you the scope for this particular solution, an alternative solution that will support colleagues to come to site, but also it helps organisations to champion sustainable parking. So whether that's allocating lift share parking bays or parking permit allocations, it just gives that feasible case study to put that on the table. But again, if we just stay a little bit closer to the destination point, that a lot of these individuals that have 100 potential lift share matches also will have a active travel alternative too. So in the winter months, we want to we don't want them to revert back into the single occupancy vehicle. We want to be promoting other sustainable modes, whether that's public transport or being a passenger in a lift share team. And this just gives the business case and I guess the reassurance to trade unions and HR teams that when you are introducing policy changes, for example, excluding particular people that live within a radius around from the destination to not be able to park on site, this data will show that they have active travel, public transport and car share options. So they have multiple means to getting to site. But what we're just showing you now is the active travel view. And the green is showing you those that have a walking option. So this postcode is a walking duration of 20 minutes and a cycling of 8 minutes. We have a default of a 1.5 mile distance for walking and a 6 mile distance for cycling. And this isn't as the crow flies, this is based on current infrastructure. So this is a really great use. A great tool to share with the local authorities. A number of them are really focusing on active travel infrastructures at the moment. So this is a really great case just to show the pockets of where people are commuting from, because that ultimately is going to be their biggest audience to affect change. But also, when we're looking at e-bikes and e-hubs, this is an area where they can locate assets in areas where there's high demand for use. So it's just also looking at other revolutionary ways of getting to and from a particular place, that actually this will help locate those assets as well. So that's everything really from the measurement side of things. But what I just want to do is just quickly recap. So within the measure phase of Mobilityways, we help organisations understand their workforce's current commuting patterns, barriers and motivations to change. We then also calculate the commuter emissions to understand where they're benchmarked. We then also provide the opportunity for sustainable commuting as a whole to really help map out that road to zero carbon commuting. And one of many organisations that we've used this powerful data to address their commuter emissions, along with many of their operational challenges, is the University Hospitals of Bristol, a large multi-site NHS trust. And here is a quick clip from their sustainability team talking about their journey so far.
Commuting is one of the main contributors to the poor air quality in the country. Parking is very, very limited, which means we've got to find different ways to attract and retain staff. And from the scoping data, we found out that there is somebody that commutes from Edinburgh, which could be a challenge, but we also found out the average distance that most staff commute from, and that there is a lot of staff that can find alternative ways to travel rather than single occupancy vehicles.
With travel, it's more about promoting other options to try and influence behaviour change, to try and encourage those more sustainable behaviours. So that might look like things like improving showering facilities so that when you do cycle in, it's a more positive experience and there's less friction in that process.
We've been able to put together things like personal travel plans for staff so that they can find out that there are different ways, they don't have to bring their car.
The Trust are leading on signing a healthy climate prescription, which is something that's been signed by lots of doctors already, but it's sending a message to COP27 and to our government and others about what we as health professionals see needs to be done in terms of climate change.
They've been able to give us our ACEL score, which tells us what our commuter emission levels are, so that we can set targets to achieve what we need to by the time we need to achieve it. Without the personal travel plans that we've been able to link to our car parking policy, we would have been left with just approaching staff face-to-face. Personal travel plans online enables us to reach a lot more staff than what we could do face-to-face.
If we can have apps like Lift Share, for example, which make the process of finding a lift into the hospital easier for that individual, then that's sort of the tactic that we try and use to try and approach sustainable travel.
Mobilityways has helped us to build a business case for sustainable travel. It's helped us with building a business case for a new shuttle bus that's going to be launched later in the year for our hospital in Weston. It's helped us build a business case for our new on-demand shuttle service that we've launched for staff overnight. So we found that our ACL score pre-pandemic was lower than it is now, which it was good to find that out because it gives us the evidence we need to convince the decision makers that we need to put the alternatives in place so that the way people commute to this hospital is sustainable.
So thanks very much, Stacey. And just to remind you about questions, we've had some come in already. Please do put any questions in the chat so that we can come back to you after the webinar in detail. I also thought I'd quickly mention that we ran a commute census recently. It's the second one we've done. We had 11,000 responses. And the good news was that only 19%, that's 19% of all respondents said they wouldn't consider an alternative to driving alone to work. So we're going to have a look now at some of the opportunities that exist for them. So this is the reduce phase, and we talked earlier about the use of the data to create the strategy, the roadmap. And the first thing that we might do as a result of having a look at that data and putting together the strategy is Lift Share for Work. So if we could just go on to the next slide, please. I'm going to take you through just a couple of slides explaining at a high level what that looks like. So when we talk about Lift Share for Work, we're talking about a community, a branded community that we set up for an organization. And this enables staff at that organization to find colleagues with whom they want to share, or if they want to change their settings, that they can look outside of that community to find others that may be traveling the same way or live nearby, or who could pick them up en route. It's really important that we do have a community, because in our experience, we found that half of those working for organizations that might be interested in car sharing will not share with strangers. So it's really important that you have that community in place to give them the comfort to give this a go. The other thing it offers in terms of having a community is the ability to tie into incentives and things like car share spaces, and of course to record the data. LiveShare comes with its own dashboard and gives you all the information that you're going to need around numbers of journeys, CO2e savings, miles off the highway, and so on. Next slide, please. Now, the user experience is as you would expect from a 21st century website. It's very simple to use, very intuitive, and it's really about registering on the system, adding either one or multiple journeys. You know, we're very much aware now that the way that we travel to and from work, and we might do that in hybrid ways, makes it more likely that we're going to put multiple journeys onto the system. And that just means that we might be finding different people to share with at different times or different days of the week. Having added the journey, you will then see a whole list of potential sharers. And as Stacey showed on that scoping map, this could be very long indeed. And it's really within the power and gift of the individual to start to have a trawl through those and decide which they'd like to get in touch with and find out and fine tune the information to decide if they want to go ahead and share. The other thing the system will do would be that it would automatically produce a capped price that you as a driver is able to charge those people that you are sharing with. And that's really important. Often it won't actually come into play, because I might share this week and my colleague might, I might drive this week and my colleague might drive next. But if I'm doing all the driving because my colleague doesn't have a car, then it's right and proper that I ask for a contribution to fuel and wear and tear. But those words are really important, because if it's not a contribution, if it's more than that, then I'm profiteering, in which case I will have tax and insurance issues. In fact, I won't have any insurance at all. So that figure is capped, and it's transparent to both the driver and passenger or passengers, and it has nothing to do at all with the employer. It's just between the parties. Next slide, please. Now, to complement this, the LiveShare platform, we have something called smart parking or trip authentication. And this is where the driver and passenger or passengers using the app can touch phones at the start of their journey. So there's a QR code read. Now, what that does is it logs the start of the journey. It doesn't track the journey, because that wouldn't be very popular, and it would also start to use too much of your battery. So the reason why this is important is that it provides real live data for you as the employer in terms of the miles that are being shared, the savings that are being provided, both from a cash perspective and from a CO2e perspective. It also enables you to reward individuals for this behavior. So for example, every 5 times I authenticate, perhaps I get a free coffee, or every 10 times maybe a shopping voucher of some sort. But it also means that when I come to the car park, I get access to car share bays. And we are fully aware that one of the greatest incentives to encourage people to share is access to spaces which are solely for those that are sharing and which are well managed. It's a really important component. Now, what we're also doing is developing this further. So we're trialing at the moment the ability to integrate this authentication software with ANPR barriers. So if you take an NHS example, where staff may be charged for parking, if you've actually authenticated, you could drive up to the barrier recognize not only you're a member of staff, but also the fact that you shared, and could charge you a different price for coming in to the car park. So that becomes one of a number of incentives to encourage this behavior change. You're saving money through sharing anyway, at least halving the cost of your petrol, at least halving the cost of your parking. Perhaps that parking cost could come down further. You're also getting access to a car share space, and potentially added things like coffees, free meals, vouchers, and so on. Many, many reasons to take up this different mode of travel. Oh, and by the way, we're saving the planet. Next slide, please. Okay, what I'd like to do now is just pass on to Sarah Roberts, who's Head of Product and Innovation, and she's going to take you through personal travel plans and gamification. Over to you, Sarah.
Thanks, Mark. Share my screen. Okay, hopefully you can see my screen. So as mentioned in the video, one of the Mobilityways modules that helps organisations, start my video, sorry. As mentioned in the video, one of the Mobilityways modules that helps organisations reduce their commuter emissions is personal travel plans. Personal travel plans, also known as PTPs, plot an employee's personal commute to give them viable walking, cycling and public transport results, as well as lift share, car share results, all in one place. PTPs remove the guesswork involved with making greener choices, and unlike Google's journey planner, PTPs list the most sustainable journeys first. In just a few clicks, an organisation can send thousands of bespoke plans, or PTPs, to their workforce via email. Lift share results are also shown on personal travel plans, and Mobilityways is the only journey planner to currently show lift share matches. PTPs also track behaviour change after its delivery and clearly display this progress on the dashboard. So I'll just run you through this personal travel plan that I've got here. The first sort of section is all of my recommended modes. I can then go through my walking if I've got a few options, different routes, and cycling. The options that appear can all be configured. So our default suggested cycling route is 6 miles. So you're not going to see something like you can sometimes see on Google where it says you could cycle, but it'll take you 2.5 days, or a walk will take you a day. You can filter what the maximum mileage is yourself. As I said, it's set to 6, but you could have it to 8 miles or 10 miles or even less if you wish. The next one is lift share results. So I can see who is in and around my area, whether they're a driver or a passenger, or they don't mind, they're happy to be both. I can then go straight to lift share via this link in here. It will ask me to sign in, or if I haven't got an account, to create one, just to make sure that those journeys and things are secure. And then the next one is public transport results. This particular journey only has bus results on here, but if I was in Sheffield or Manchester, I know they've got trams up there. If there's trains on the route as well that's considered viable, they will show. And we've also got the ability to upload your company's private shuttle bus. So if you only advertise that to your employees and it's not on Google or anything else, and you're struggling to advertise that it exists, we can plot the lat and long of each of the stops and put this onto your PTPs and promote that as well. After each plan is delivered, we automatically send follow-up surveys to see if that person has changed their behaviour. This data is really important as it shows you whether showing your staff their sustainable travel options and the incentives that are linked to these have actually encouraged behaviour change towards zero carbon commuting. So this personal travel plan dashboard here shows you lots of information, including the original mode of your staff's commuting habits and what sustainable alternatives they have changed to, if any. The automatic survey also collects barriers to sustainable commuting, giving you clear insights into why your staff are reluctant to change their behaviour, and if there are any quick wins which you can implement to alleviate those obstacles. So if the public transport is too inconvenient, or if you've got a lot of people saying it's too expensive, you can straight away see that they're the barriers to more of your staff heading towards sustainable modes of travel. PCPs can be delivered in 2 different ways. The first is via hosting a plugin widget, which you can see here. You can download the code for this and add it to your intranet, your website, or host it on its own page and link to it however you wish. Employees can fill in their information and generate themselves a personal travel plan at a time that suits them with this tool here. You can also introduce this into your new starter onboarding process to ensure each new employee understands your zero carbon commuting goals and their sustainable travel options when they first join your organisation. The second way is via email, which you can customise completely. So on the Mobilityways dashboard, we have the personal travel plan module. You can select, or that sort of walks you through step by step how to do this. You can select which staff you want, whether that's one person who's just started, or you can do it by team. HR can get their personal travel plans first and then IT, or by building, or you can select your entire organisation and send them all a personal travel plan themselves. So that's the first section. You can then generate the personal travel plans. If you generate one, it's a couple of seconds. If you generate 1,000, it'll just keep ticking on in the background. You can continue through the process, and you'll just get an email from the dashboard to say that it's ready when it's done. Anyone can have, or you can change their start time and their leave time to generate that plan for, and then you can customize the email. So I've just customized ones here. It's just about encouraging them to actually have a think about the different sustainable travel options that are available to them. And then if you've got anything to remind them about the sustainable travel options, then this is a really good place to put it. So is there have you just launched some showers and lockers for cyclists? Are you rewarding people with a free coffee or a tea if they walk or cycle or car share to work? And any discounts you've got on public transport, they're really good things to include on here. As I said, it's completely customizable. You can write whatever text you like in here. You can then schedule the plans to be sent immediately or on a certain date and time, and it's completely up to you. The second thing that I wanted to go through today is actually an enhancement that we've made to our LiftShare product. We've recently gamified the system, enabling members to earn badges and points for completing desired behaviours and reaching car sharing milestones. Gamifying LiftShare member experience seeks to drive overall membership engagement across the platform, incentivise trip authentication across the platform, as Mark mentioned earlier with smart parking, and this validates real individual car shares using the LiftShare app. And it also just fosters a stronger community amongst your car sharers. So members can progress through different levels, rewarding them for their activity on the platform. This shows on members' profiles, so new car sharers can see who the regular users of the system are and who's more likely to reply to them. Badges, as well as levels, members can collect badges based on profile activity and activity around validating their car shares. Profile badges have been created because our research suggests that the more information that you put on your profile, the more likely that a member will actually find a car share partner. Trip miles and CO2 saved badges are all linked to actual car sharing, where 2 or more car sharers have used the LiftShare app to confirm their car shares each day. Rewarding regular activity helps turn it into a habit and will give you, as an organisation, real statistics to report on against your car share community. We've also, as part of the sort of gamification functionality that we've added, we've also added a leaderboard. Leaderboards can be open to the public LiftShare network or only show activity and points related to your own community, which can keep this completely private. So we can see on here who's at the top of my leaderboard, and if I scroll down I can see where I am as well, how many other people are in the same place as me, how far I've got to go to sort of get to the top. So if you did want that completely isolated to your own community and none of the public network to see those names, that is all possible. If you'd like any further information about personal travel plans or the LiftShare gamification enhancements, then please don't hesitate to reach out to me and I'd be happy to help. We'd now like to show you a short video highlighting how a large company in England has used LiftShare to help with their parking issues.
Arup is an engineering and design company and a consultancy, so we look after infrastructure, buildings, travel, everything you can imagine, underground, overground and cities. We are all across the world, but this office in the Midlands happens to be the 3rd largest in the world. Out of 320 spaces and 900 staff, we filled all of them. They were on the verges, they were on the end of spaces, they were on The entrances and exits, people couldn't get out of the car park, they were blocked in. It was just a hazard. It was really important we sorted this issue out. People are at the heart of everything we do. When we employ people, they're joining as a member. They're not just an employee, they're owning part of the company because we're a members company. Our retention is really high, our turnover is really low, and that's because when people join Arup, they realise it's a kind of company that really does care about your health, well-being, and all the other things that go with that too. Lift share was always there, but without the smart app when I joined. And the take-up was very minimal. We couldn't really see it. And people abusing the spaces because there was no monitoring of it. When we got to this situation, we needed to change things. We actually launched the Lift Share app. We introduced it to people with a video to show how easy it was to use and incentivised them. So we went from 20 bays out of 320 that were Lift Share designated to actually then saying 70 of those bays are only for people that lift share. So people couldn't come in every day unless they lift shared because there weren't enough spaces. So people's car parking was limited to 2 days a week. However, if they lift share, they could come in every day. Initially, like anything, behaviours, and people think, is it really going to be monitored? Because the Lift Share app gave us the ability to scan QR codes, so my facilities and car park team would go out in the mornings, check all the bays that were Lift Share. It would take them 20 minutes at a time, and they'd zap and just check that they shared. The impact was we went from mayhem to a really comfortable situation. We had 10 bays that always were there for visitors, never parked in. We had lift share bays and a section of the car park that was all dedicated to lift share. We never exceeded our car park spaces, so there were always some left. And that was a massive change from where we used to be. We got rid of our health and safety issues. People connected with people that they didn't used to connect with before. So it just made life a lot better for everybody, for the business and for people.
So that's a great link in really from some of the comments that Sandy was making into the next section, which is really around parking policy and sustainable parking management. And Sandy touched on a number of the things there as to why parking policy actually matters. And I'm just going to run through that really quickly and then hand on to a colleague to take you through some new software that we've created that I think is really exciting. So why does this stuff matter? Well, actually, we talked earlier about recruitment. And it is a key objective for employers to actually make sure that their site is as accessible to employees as possible, because it gives you access to the widest labour pool in what is a very difficult labour market at the moment, and also helps you lower pressure on wages as well. And it may have to overcome what is fast becoming a bit old-fashioned attitude, but there are still people out there who think they're entitled to a parking space as part of the job, as a perk. And it's important that we address that within the parking policy. The car park can be very large. It is an expensive asset. It should be used as efficiently as possible. And of course, if you have surplus spaces, then those spaces could be used more profitably and effectively. And if you've got a shortfall, then you're going to have issues in terms of access and the impact that has on individuals, which is the next point really. I've come across many an estate and parking manager during my 10 years working here who has been pummeled by staff in terms of lack of access to parking. And it's also often very stressful to employees and even visitors. And there's a stat there from NHS Trust, 21% of staff saying that parking negatively affects their working day on a regular basis. And that's the start of their working day. If you've got overflowing spaces like Arup had, health and safety risk, and then flipping it over and being a bit more positive, parking policies can also support those many benefits that we've talked about from introducing sustainable commuting, whether that's well-being, financial savings, recruitment, and so on. And to do that in a fair and consistent way. And then managed car share bays, which we touched on as well, a key driver in people engaging in car sharing. So that's why it matters. I'm just going to hand over now to Carl Reesey, who has a job title which I really envy. He is business analyst and customer engagement specialist for Mobilityways. I'm going to let him take you through smart parking management.
Thank you very much for that, Mark. So our sustainability car park management solution will emphasize a sustainability first mindset when it comes to permit issuance and validation. And this solution offers three very key benefits. These are namely the ability to restrict permits to only those employees who do not have a viable, sustainable commuting option, as well as allowing organizations to incentivize lift sharing with discounted or priority parking permits across the entire workforce. It offers a seamless workflow facilitating sustainable commuting promotion, easy to use permit application and permit issuance processes, as well as a straightforward lift share validation and parking enforcement process. Now, this end-to-end solution that we're working on can support companion handheld enforcement apps, automatic number plate recognition technology, or also known as ANPR, permit payment facilities, and also the issuance of parking charge notices, also known as PCNs. Now, how does all this work? Well, if we move over to the next slide, someone can help me with that. There you go. So for the sustainable permit application process, which enables the ability to restrict permits to only those employees without a viable commuting option, employees are able to apply. Employees are able to apply for a permit through our sustainable car park management portal, which we'll be able to get to see a preview of in just a second. But from here, employees' details are used to generate a personal travel plan specific to that individual. That's the same personal travel plan that you saw in the previous segment where Sarah gave us the demo of how P2P works. And of course, these personal travel plans will outline all the employees' sustainable travel options that are available to them. And of course, once their permit application has been submitted, this can then be used alongside those details to either approve or reject the permit application based on the details within that personal travel plan. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to quickly share my screen with you. And this will allow me to give you just a quick preview of the actual software itself. 1 second. There you go. So you should be having, you should be able to see the permit portal in front of you. So from here, a user can go ahead and apply for their permit from the sustainable permit management software. What the user would typically do is go ahead and select a permit by clicking the request permit screen. And this will then take them to a form that they'll fill in. From here, they can go ahead and select the individual permit type that they're looking to request. In this example, what the user is doing is selecting the car share permit. What that will do is that will load up the necessary details that the user would need to fill in. And they would go ahead and fill in all the details like their vehicle registration number, the locations where they work, where they needed the permit to start from, as well as information about their department and job title, etc. But the key part here is this little section where we've got the lift share link ID, where the user would go ahead and fill in their lift share subscriber ID, which will be made available to that user from their lift share account. Once they've pasted that in and linked their account, then there will be an interaction between their permit and also their lift share account. So we'd be able to check to see whether or not the user is authenticating each time they've parked in the actual allocated lift share days. The idea is that once the user has gone ahead and submitted their details, they will then be submitted for approval. And this is where your car park manager or whoever is administrating that will be able to review all permits that have been submitted and approve or reject permits based on whether or not they're meeting their sustainability obligations or whether or not they have authenticated on that particular day. And the The way that this product is going to evolve in the future is still to be determined, but we're at the very early stages of this particular feature. So if you have any feedback on what you would like this to do, then of course you can always get in contact with us via your account manager, or you can contact us directly after this session. But what I'd like to do now is hand you over to Charlotte, who will be talking us through the reporting on the Mobilityways platform.
Perfect. Thank you, Kyle, for going through that. So yeah, as we've seen from Stacey and Sarah, by utilising your Mobilityways dashboard, you can access the reporting for all your emissions and commuter behaviour change data in one place. And as you move along the process, starting with scoping, the Mobilityways dashboard is the home of your scoping report and map, which enables you to see the art of the possible for your organisation. We are then able to compare what we know to be possible from scoping with what is currently happening through surveying your employees. Within the Mobilityways dashboard, again, you are able to see live survey analytics for your travel survey questionnaire as the responses from employees come in. Mobilityways working with you will then be able to suggest recommendations and assist with next steps within our reporting to help develop strategies to influence real change for your organisation on the ground level. As part of the travel survey data collection, we will generate your organisation's ACEL score based upon your employees' mode of travel, as well as frequency and the distance of their commute. By conducting annual travel surveying, you'll be able to log into your Mobilityways dashboard and to compare your ACEL scores year on year and track your progress towards net zero. Decarbonising the commute is not only about current infrastructure and what improvements need to be made, but relies heavily upon influencing the behaviour change of your commuters. Within the PTP module, you can view the behaviour change impact of personal travel plans, a key component within that wider reporting metric of how to tackle those commuter emissions levels. The Mobilityways dashboard informs how employees could commute, how they are currently, and what the appetite is for alternative greener options. This helps us to understand the wider picture of commuting habits within your organisation and helps our organisations to work in partnership to implement ways to decarbonise your commute. If I can have the next slide, please. Perfect. So the Mobilityways dashboard will give you all the information you need to start tackling your organisation's commuting emissions in one place, alongside the support of your dedicated account manager and team of consultant commutologists. We can assist you with your strategy for meeting net zero. But hold on, what is a commutologist, I hear you ask? Well, here at Mobilityways, we have coined the term commutology to refer to the science of decarbonising the commute. And when it comes to reporting back your commuter emissions data, the dedicated team of consultant commutologists here at Mobilityways have spent over 20 years developing the tools previously outlined and the methodology required to allow us to work in partnership with you to generate the reporting needed to outline and evidence your journey to net zero, and ultimately set you on the right path to measure, reduce and report on your Scope 3 commuter emissions. That's kind of all from me, very brief sort of overview of commutology, but I'm going to hand back to Mark now. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlotte. Okay, so just to close now, as we're heading up towards 3 o'clock, next steps are going to be from us to respond directly to all your questions. There have been many. Thank you for those. If anyone else still has questions to ask, please do put them into the chat and we will come back to you afterwards with detailed responses. We will also send you a copy of this video. But just to sum up, what we hope we've managed to take you through today is a phased approach to the delivery of zero carbon commuting that starts with data. It starts with understanding the current position, current insights into why people travel the way they do, what might incentivize them to change, what the barriers are, what is the art of the possible, where have we got gaps in provision and how might that be overcome. That sets us on our way for a roadmap of how we can actually achieve zero carbon commuting. And this is strategic. This will not be achieved tomorrow. It might take 5 years, 10 years or 15. but we will help you get to ZCC, as we call it, by a given date. As part of that reduction process, we might consider lift sharing, personal travel plans, sustainable car parking management. There could be all sorts of partnerships that come into play with transport operators, micro providers, and so on. And then a reporting dashboard that helps you to understand with live data on an ongoing basis how things are changing, what impacts we're having, where things are working, where things need to change. So I hope we've managed to convey that within the 60 minutes we've got today. I'll say a massive thank you from the whole team for joining us, and we will get back to you soon with your questions and with the video. And thanks very much, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Goodbye for now.